Today is our second day exploring Yellowstone National Park. Yesterday I got the chance to meet up with my best friend from secondary school and we had fun at the Firehole River, marvelled at geyser activity at the Norris Basin and took in the vistas at Yellowstone's Grand Canyon. Back to travelling as just the two of us, we started this morning early with a drive on the Lamar Valley, spotting huge numbers of bison, checked out some of Yellowstone's lesser known attractions, got a science lesson wandering around the Mammoth Hot Springs terrace, and a history lesson taking part in a self-guided tour of the Fort Yellowstone area. This afternoon, we plan to have a little relaxation where the aptly named Boiling River meets the cold Gardiner River, before heading back to the Lamar Valley for an evening safari drive with hopes of seeing more than just bison. Departing the Mammoth Hot Springs town, and we're going to head down into the valley towards Gardiner because there is a point in the river where the coldness of the river meets the boiling hot waters that's coming from the geothermal activity, and the National Park Service have cordoned off an area of it so that we can actually go into it, and it's a little bit like a hot steamy bath, but of course you can move away from the hotter water into the colder water where it's perhaps a little bit more pleasant given that it's boiling hot outside, but it should just be a chill couple of hours down at the river. I think we've just come down. Well, number one, we're here during peak tourist season, but number two, I think we've come at a time of day when it's really popular. And so we drove all the way down the road to get parked, and then Andy managed to put the car keys inside of the boot, inside the trunk of the car, and closed the boot. And there was a few seconds of absolute sheer panic because we don't have any phone reception down here. And then we realised it was a super smart car. It sensed that the keys were in there and it just popped the boot back open and we were able to get them. But it was a few minutes of sheer panic, but we are here now and we are looking forward to getting in for a dip. As soon as I've gotten to this space where I've stopped, this waterfall behind me has got really hot water coming in and it's absolutely beautiful. So my feet are starting to feel freezing on the water. I'm going to keep on going down and hopefully I can find a spot where I can just kind of sit down and chill for a little bit. Behind me you can see a whole load of elk. We've driven back up to Mammoth Springs and we just pulled up in a parking space just to go and pick up some sandwiches for tea from the village store, and these guys have just appeared in front of us. We were speaking to the ranger a little bit earlier on and we were asking why there are always elk up here, and she said there's pretty much three reasons as to why. The first is that they've always been around this area and it's just elk's natural way in that they don't really want to move on. The second thing is that over the hundreds or so years that humans have been living in this mammoth area, the elk have started to realize that we as humans aren't actually that much of a threat to them, and then when we're around, things like grizzly bears, things like wolves, they don't tend to want to come here, so the elk have started to realise that we as humans are actually kind of protective of them, so they're quite happy to hang around us because they know that they're a bit safer around us. And then the third reason is that because people who work at the park live in this area, they've tended to their lawns, it's really nice grass that's, you know, had sprinklers put on them and it's been looked after, and therefore it's like really lush grass, which obviously tastes lovely to the elk. And so then that's another reason why a lot of them just hang out here. The ranger was saying there's elk here every single day, so if you ever want to come to Yellowstone to see elk, definitely come up to the Mammoth Hot Springs area because you're gonna see them. We just saw a bear and it's just gone over the top of this hill, so we're kind of stuck in a bit of a traffic jam at the moment because obviously everyone's excited to see a bear. We think it's a black bear. We couldn't quite see the hump above the rump, as you say, for a grizzly, but hopefully we're going to get over this little mound here and we might be able to see it again. Hopefully I can catch it on camera. Gone up into those hills there. We think it's going to be making its way over to the forest because it was definitely a black bear, and that tends to be where they like to hang out because there's lots of berries. We are now moving, but one of these bison had just wandered into the middle of traffic, which just brought everyone to a standstill, and people who were way back in traffic just really inconsiderate, honking their horns. I'll show you the bison that was the problem. It was one of these two, I'm not too sure which one. But yeah, just like honking their horns, being like, come on, I want to see the bear. And it's like, what do you want us to do? Like, run over the bison in order to be able to allow you to see the bear? I just feel like Yellowstone does attract some people who are a little bit on the inconsiderate side.
Really don't care about us.
Oh, it's running. Something has definitely spooked it.
It's a bear, it's a bear.
See the bear actually dodged when the buffalo started walking towards him. He actually turned and kind of jolted off.
Oh, is that what spooked it?
Yeah, the buffalo started walking. Oh, that was charging.
Oh, buffalo versus bear.
Whoa. Okay. Let's keep it distance.
So we've just driven on a tiny little bit from where we saw the bear, and just over that mound we found all of these bison, and you can see that there's like little baby calves, and it all makes sense now as to why the other bison started charging at the black bear, because it was just trying to protect the herd, particularly the little calves, which obviously the adult bisons were just worried that maybe the black bear might have gone for their little babies. Decided to turn around on our safari drive out on the Lamar Valley. It's gone 8 o'clock. The rangers have said that the best time to see wildlife is any time between about 7 and 9. So it's taken us about an hour to drive out here, although when we saw that black bear, it definitely ate some time into it. But we just figure turn around at the 1 hour point and then have that hour to drive back. We'll keep our fingers crossed and our eyes peeled to see if we do see any more wildlife. I would really love to see a grizzly bear. I've still never seen a grizzly bear in my life before, but I know they can be really hard to find. The guys who we pulled up next to when the black bear was out, the guy was saying to his son, like, 9th bear, and I turned to him and I said, 9th bear this trip? And he said, yeah. And I said, have you seen a grizzly? He said, no, they've all been black bears. So we know that they're really hard to find, but we'll just keep our eyes peeled. I don't know if you can see this up on the hillside behind me, but I'm pretty sure that it's a wolf. And I think what's really exciting is that I spotted this. So it turns out it was actually a coyote. We later discovered that Americans don't see coyotes as exciting animals because they're fairly common and they've also been known to attack family pets. However, for authenticity, I've included the clip so that you can all be amused by my excitement over something that's apparently very mundane, bordering on being a pest for most Americans. There was no one else stopped here, or at least I didn't think there was anyone else stopped here. And then I realised there's this guy like over on the grass, and when I pulled up I said, is it a wolf or is it a coyote? And he was like, oh, I was picturing the swallows. So we've kind of come a little bit further down the road and no one else has stopped. Like if I show you, which is virtually unheard of. Like everywhere we've been where there's been something really cool and hard to see, there have been crowds everywhere. After our slightly misguided excitement, we drove a little bit further down the road of the Lamar Valley and once again came to something of a traffic standstill. Unlike when a bison walks out into the middle of the road and people tend to sit waiting quite calmly, it seemed like there was an awful lot of activity, people getting out of their cars, others running back to the cars and reading their body language. It certainly sounded like something interesting was going on. So we got out of our car, went to go and have a look and found that there was a mother bear and a few cubs quite some distance away, and also the light was getting quite low at this point, so I'm afraid the footage isn't great. Once again, we got confused and thought that there were wolves tracking them. An American very kindly informed us that there were in fact coyotes. So we're still driving back through the Lamar Valley to try and get back to our accommodation, and once again we've seen loads and loads of cars up on the side. In the distance on the hill you can see a black bear. I am more than far enough away from it for it to be safe, but I cannot believe some of the tourists who've actually gone off of the road and they've actually started crossing the meadows to try and see the bear. I'm actually really surprised that a ranger hasn't come out to scream at them to get back onto the road. It's just really dangerous. It's a couple of different groups as well because they've dispersed off to different places. It just seems nuts that they're doing it.